Hello everyone. Good afternoon. Today we are here to discuss about review articles. We will be discussing in step-by-step process. What exactly do we need in this process? Let's wait for like 1 or 2 minutes for everyone to join. Okay, some people are saying let's continue. So, what exactly is your review article? A review article is a literature survey of the researchers who had already done this research, and they had implemented that research, and they had find the methodology, and they had find the results, and you are using their outcome as your review, as your analysis, as your research work, right? For let's take an example of like you're building a home for yourself, and you are acknowledging those persons who have a wonderful house around your neighborhood, right? So you find collective information from them, where they had find their furnitures and where they are planting their foods, and what exactly is their environment, and what exactly is their environmental situation over there in which you are going to live, right? So that's why that's exactly the same with the research work. When we talk about review articles or research work, right? So the research work is like uh, research work, their research work is your review, right? So you are analyzing that, you are implementing that, and you are writing that in your own perspective. You're not challenging them, you're not objecting them, you are just analyzing that theory, what they had provided, and you are finding a uh, new finding for yourself, not for themselves. They had already done that research, right? So you are finding a research for yourself. You are finding some research or future perspective for your research work, right? And as per the review article, you don't you don't uh, you don't have any methodology. You don't took any methodology. You don't have to write any methodology in review articles. You are just reviewing literature's work of previous researchers, right? So in that scenario, we will continue. Hold on, sorry for that. Yeah. So let's um, let's understand what is exactly review of art review article. Review article is basically Review article is basically an updation for the knowledge work for the specific field of specializations, and formulating your own theory, your own guidelines, how you are going to pursue your own research, right? You're finding something like I took an example of building a home, right? In that case, you are finding a building. You had find a good place for yourself. You are just now building the stock of how you are constructing that building. Or sometimes you just had a um, renovation. You are just, or you had already bought that building, and you are just building that. You are just renovating that building for yourself. So that's why an updation in your life, in your knowledge work, is always required, right? A previous knowledge which they had written can be acknowledged, but yes, they had already made that changes. So you are making the new change for the new generation who is going to read your paper, who is going to review your analysis, and what is going to learn from your analysis is basically a review article. And the building factor for financial support is investigation or researchers work. As of now, when we talk about the financial support of the investigation of for the researcher, so it is generally like when in PhD, sometimes we face financial issues. Likewise, I faced in mine. When I was going through my PhD, in that scenario, I had to go through one place to another for the samples, or like each day, or I had made a deal with the doctor, you can say. They had they used to give me vials of the blood, like two patients vials of blood, in like a day or two. I collected that sample work in approximately a year. I took 500 samples in that, and for that, travel expenses cost me around 50,000, and that is something which you need to be covered in your financials, right? In your travel expenses. These kind of factors you should learn before going into investigation. How you're going to learn it is by analyzing the researchers who had already made these kind of research, who had already done this research, right? So you are just analyzing, you're not just analyzing their theory, you are analyzing the how they had implemented that change. So in that case, you need a proper guidance and a thorough reading for your investigation, for your research, so that you can analyze your financial support. Somewhat some of the PhD students have scholarships, somewhat have not. I have 20,000 scholarship, but not as in to not I was not studying free, so it cost me around. So that's why you need financial support. You can't be dependent on your parents for that. So you need your research work, you need your patience, you need everything. Especially, most important factor is your financial support. And the next comes, it has all the information value of uh, what exactly are you going to achieve in it, what exactly had you find, and how you are communicating that information to building your research work, how you are implementing that thing. Like as previously I told about an example, you are constructing that thing or you are renovating that, and one and the same thing. But you are making a home for yourself, that is more important here. In review article, you are making your own research, you are making your base out of your literature survey. You need to be thorough, and you need to be a very mandatory and likewise specific. Somehow you had to be randomized. You need a qualitative research, right? Sometimes sometimes a qualitative research can be very important in review articles, and quantitative research is like you are doing your research but you are not paying attention, you are just implementing your theory into it. But you need to focus with your research work, you have to go with the flow, but in a specific guideline, don't go out of the line. Because a review article can be like can be very typical in somewhat if you are not going in a specific manner, and you need to be very principled and disciplined while writing your review article. There are certain rules for like some there is one term called curum, that is quality of reporting of meta analysis. That is basically for randomized control studies. Randomized control studies is basically your study randomized during your research work, and herein you are using a control system, you are using a control, and as well as your subjects, you are parallelizing your research work, and you are going in one you are going with both the directions. You're taking a parallel road, likewise you're going in one motion, but with the within the two tracks and in a specific timeline. Sorry about that. Herein For review articles, there is one term, there is one system of guideline that is used called Prisma. Prisma is basically your preferred reporting items for systematic and meta analysis. Herein, you are not just talking about an updation, you are not talking about a specific guideline. This is your basic and your what do we call it, structure for your review article. You are going on the same perspective with the Prisma. We will discuss about it in later on, but let's understand what exactly did it mean, and how many types of research or how many types of review articles are there. Types of review articles. There are two types of review articles, narrative and systematic. Narrative ones are very long ones, and you don't know what you are exactly compiling things because it's a long term, it's a long spectrum, it's a broad thing. You are not just compiling things here, you are just writing things in like a very brief, thorough manner. Likewise, you are not just saying about, you're just narrative ones are like history. History is basically, you're not just describing things, you're making sense out of it. You're making one line after another, this happened, this after that, that happened, after that, that happened. This kind of narrative is basically used in narratives. That's why it's easy, readable format. It allows consideration of the subject matter within the large spectrum. Here you are not targeting your audience, you are just giving a whole information to all the readers. You are just applying things. You are just applying things, you are giving them a proper information about a whole subject of one term. Likewise psychology, likewise history, likewise these kind of formats is narrative type of review articles is generally written in that manner. While on the other side, systematic is a very detailed one, comprehensive literature survey, and is performed on the selected topic. You are just narrowing down to a very detailed format. You are just not applying things here. You are going with a detailed manner. You are explaining things, what exactly happened here and why exactly that happened. You're not just going you're not just explaining things here. You're not just explaining how that thing had been applied or how you had gone through after it, but you are just explaining things, how that topic and how it had been so much important to you and why you are performing that topic. These kind of systematic things you are going to explain in your review article with systematic manner. So herein, types of review article continued, and likewise we had studied about narrative and systematic, like two categories there are. And narrative ones are easily readable format and allow consideration on the subject, likewise a broad spectrum. However, and there's one more thing, systematic review, and systematic review can be of like qualitative and quantitative, and we will discuss about it. But in systematic review, generally you are discussing about a whole methodology. Not, you are not writing your own methodology here, you are explaining the methodology of the persons who had done that research and what had they attained and how they had done. These kind of methodology can be written in systematic review if you want to be an comprehensive review writing. So herein, Since the more detailed literature serving, literally laser, you're like lesser things. You're not making things like in a broad way. Likewise, in narrative ones, you are making things in like your understanding, your authorization, your perspective. You're just considering which thing is important to you only. You're not focusing on the others or your readers. You are just analyzing your best interest and you are writing about that thing only. And systematic, likewise, I said qualitative and quantitative reviews. In both the terms, literature serving is performed. It's not that there's a difference between a literature survey, it's just that you are performing literature survey in both. By meanwhile, in quantitative reviews, study data are collected and statistically evolved. That is called meta-analysis. When you are doing a quantitative review of a systematic one, you're collecting that study and you're collecting that data and you are statistically evaluating on your own. You're not taking that data only, you're evaluating that data as well. So that's why it's a meta-analysis. Let's understand the 7-step guide for systematic review. How you are going to do a systematic review. You are, let's pose a research question first. You are doing, what exactly are you going to find out? Likewise, in a building or a neighbor or in a community, you find yourself a land, right? Likewise, here you are finding a research question in which you are building, you would going to build your dreams, or you are going to build your research. That is your posing a research question. Herein, you are reviewing systematic literature that starts with formulating research question that will define patient illness, interventions, or your decision making process. How you are determining things on your own and how you are analyzing that research and making that new perspective so that it would be your research. How you are building that, how you are molding things, and how you are making your own structure out of it is basically your posing a research question. Next step is locating studies. How you are locating your study, how you are finding your research work. There's a lot of databases where you are constructing and you can find your research. There are some of those databases, likewise Medellin, Google, and SciSearch, and more other resources. But I use generally Google Scholars. You can use that as well. There's a whole lot of data wherein you can find any type of data in management, in physiology, in psychology, or in like uh, what do we call it? Life sciences, mathematics. There are all types of data in it. You can find specific study and manual researching. You can find with the keywords as well. You can find published journals, and some are not scientifically they are not in Scopus, but they you can find them in, they find them as well. A detailed description of the approach should be described in these types of sources used. You are just specifying you or you must cite the sources because it makes the things legitimate. You're not copying things, you are just specifying things which you had taken from the other researchers. You're going to explain things in that manner. When we talk about locating studies in general, here and how you are locating plus how you are retrieving things. I said about locating things on Google Scholar. You can find your whole database and you can find your whole research over there. But how you are going to retrieve that? That is the main question, right? For retrieval, we use a database called what do we call it? Sci-Hub, and therein you can find a proper scientific proper key for your location. Some journals are not paid. Some journals are paid journals. You can't read until unless you pay them. So here is a source key where you can find and download your paid databases and can read them as well. So that is locating and retrieval of the scientific data. The next step is critical evaluation of the study. That's also very important step. You're going one by one. For critical evaluation of the study, you use specific data, you use specific criteria, how you are implementing your validation for the study, how you're determining your study, and how you are validating your study. Three things in one sentence you are describing. I'm saying use specific criteria to determine the validity of the selected studies, right? But herein I am saying specific criteria for what? Doing your research, to determining your research for your selected study, not anyone else. You are finding your own research, you are finding your own theory, you are just facilitating your decision making by implementing old research papers, old research surveys, old research databases. Herein, the studies that do not include literature review must be cited, in which, sorry about that, studies that are not included in the literature review must be cited and have a rationale for exclusion. When the study that are not basically published, or like you can say in printing, you can cite them as well, but you have to be rationalize about that this time when you cited that theory, that was in the publication, and which publication you have to specify that as well, and you have to give the authors the credit about. So that's it. Likewise, let's understand with an example. Here you are talking about your specific evaluation, your critical analysis, your critical databases, your critical study, how you are going to approach that, right? So while making a decision, you don't jump to a conclusion, right? You just build one by one. So that's why a critical evaluation of the study is very important step. You can't just mess this thing up, because if you are messing things up, like you are not clarifying your theory or your term which you are going to write about, so that would be a very difficult for you to cite, or you can say find a proper literature about that. Here for critical evaluation, I prefer to use keywords in Google databases. So specifically your term, your genre, or you can say your theorem, or what exactly are your findings you are going afterwards. So these kind of specific words you write about, and you can find or you can analyze that you are going in the right direction or not. So this step is very very important, until unless you are not specific enough. So next step is data collection. Here you're describing your study methodological approach. You're not doing your research, right? You already know about that in review writing. You are not concluding things you're just concluding things. You are not doing your own methodology. You are using their variables, their samples, their measurements, and their data analysis and your findings. What you understand from their data is your findings, which allow comparison between and or among the selected studies. So that's very important in systematic review, how you are analyzing their findings, and how you are going to give that study a selective study. Next step is data analysis and reporting. Here in studies should be grouped together. Um, Likewise, when we talk about how things go wrong in data analysis, this is the one thing. Likewise, you are not interpreting the data. You are just you are finding just the similarities, or you are not just looking into the one thing. You are just looking in all the directions. Just specify your vision, in which direction you want to grow, and what exactly you would be finding in your research. So address that thing only. Don't go in like broad way. As we studied about previously, systematic review is basically about selection, right? So when you are finding your theory, when you are finding your methodology, you are writing about your analysis, you need to find the similarity between the results. You don't write a whole result for that, like copy paste or a kind of a thing. Don't do that. Just do specific things, what they had done, what they took for the analyze, what they took for the sampling, what variables they had used, and what exactly is their measurements. Just write about that. Use graphical and numerical representation for results that would facilitate your project of your for your understanding, for your findings, right? When you do when we understand things, we can specify in like a diagram kind of a thing. Just do that. Make an Excel sheet. Do Make a pie chart out of it, and facilitate the reader to understand better things. How you had understand, how you had gone through that finding, and how much did you understand to make a proper representation of that methodologies. The statistical analysis and synthesis of the results consist of meta-analysis. Sorry about that. Sorry for that. Here, where was I? I was explaining how statistical analysis and synthesis of the results consist of meta-analysis, and how you are compiling your statistical analysis and synthesizing your own result, which would consist of meta-analysis. That is basically our theorem. Herein you use qualitative resulting, and you would use an integration of your statistical data and result of your systematic review. Here you are not discussing things here. There is no conclusion part. Sorry, no discussion part. So you are not discussing anything. But right, literature review you are been discussing is your discussion kind of a thing. You're discussing all their findings. You are doing all their data analysis. The next step is how you are interpreting that finding. When we talk about how much how much capable is your finding practices, right? How much did you had strengthen up your evidence, how much you had interpreted that finding. Likewise, when you talk about your finding, you would be finding like somebody say you find an apple, like some others say I found a mango under that tree. Someone say I found there was a banana tree out there. You don't know anyone's result, right? They have different vision. They don't have your own vision, right? So there, how much exactly is your strengthen up your study is basically how much you are literature rich your study is, and how much you had analyzes your data under the influence of numerical and statistical findings, how much cost and current practice, which dictate the balance between benefits and risk, how you are refining and updating the review. The next thing, when you are talking about updating things, when you are talking about refinement or updating the review, so in that you use a whole lot of new research, well published research. Herein you are not likewise you take an example of you're straining a tea out of in just straining a tea in a cup, right? You're just filtering things up. You are making a few recommendations for your readers so that they would address that subsequent review, or they would find your findings under that citation, uh, and how you are giving them a new vision about your published topic, right? How to prepare your own review article, this is your next question. uh, so the more logical to investigate the motivation, the more logical or the more motivated you are in writing your research question, research analysis is basically how you are going to investigate your research, how you are rationalizing things, how you are readable, how you are reading things properly, how you are citing most important inquiry of for your research, how you are best literature sourcing yourself. The main review article thing is basically you are making your review or your literature a very rich content wherein the readers will understand how much they are going to read, what exactly are their interpretations, right? So that needs to be finded, and the more simpler definitions you can say that would have, the more the simple definition of the review article that contains the following key points. The first is a research question which you are dealing with, methods used to find out. For review articles, the most important thing is how you are finding things. There is your own method. For like, take an example of like survey. The most important point here is you are selecting a best quality research. Likewise, you had read about 100 papers, but none of them are relevant, but the 10 are. You are you are just crediting your methodology, like I read this much papers and I filtered out to this much theorem to 10 papers, and out of that only 3 papers were relevant. This is your filtering things out. So that is basically your method you had used in your findings to find your research question, right? So this thing is your second point. Now, to synthesize available but quite different researchers. Likewise, I said when you had find out what exactly had the 100 researchers did and how much relevance is there in your predictions, in their predictions and your predictions, you are filtering after um, that elementary thing is basically you are finding out things after that by filtering things up to making your own synthesization. You are neating things up. You are neating one plus two plus three plus four plus five, right? You are making your own analogy here. You are not just figuring things. Likewise, there is what different they had, what exactly did they mean. You're not finding these kind of things. You are just finding how much relevance is their review, their research to your research. You're just finding a balance between them. Until unless you don't find a balance or your similarity between that, you don't think that topic would be relevant. That topic would be an kind of any profit to you. So skip that part. Let's talk about here is the blank example. When we talk about the likewise this white page has a similarity to the to my blank research question, right? I didn't ask any question yet. Yeah, somebody is asking me what exactly did I mean by research skipping. The research skipping is basically how much percent of your research finding or your research question match to the other researchers. That's when you write about your that's when you write about their research, right? Until unless you don't find any similarity, how you are going to write about it, right? So there needs to be any similarity to find it. Likewise, somebody say a management paper, give me a management paper and to tell me to write about it on with the life sciences. I can't do that, right? There is no similarity between it. It's a management. I am from that background, and I can't use management into life sciences. Likewise, we use this kind of examples and we use these kind of scenarios to build up things. Likewise, the Prisma statement, when we had talked about, we will be discussing this in previous in next slides. So the Prisma is basically your term, your terminology for your structural review article. Here in the for the structure of your review article, you use Prisma most of the time. The publications we use has these underminings in which certain scenarios we use we use to build a whole structure out of it. So let's understand what exactly are the key points here. Prisma statement is basically a 27 item checklist. What exactly did it? It's basically your structure for your review article. So what does it has? It has a title. Title means you have to identify the article in a systematic review. You are doing a meta-analysis or both. You can do both. Meta-analysis and systematic review can be done in both ways. Herein you are discussing about a summary. You can say it about an abstract, or just a summary can do just fine. So herein you are structuring your theory, you are structuring your summary by studying background, objective, what objectives did you use for your data sources, your eligibility criteria, participants, treatments, study appraisal, and synthesis. What exactly is synthesis methods? As I told earlier, it's a filtering method most of the time. How you are filtering your literature review is your synthesis of the methods. How is your results you would be finding out of it? What are the limitations, and how you are concluding that thing in just one line, and implementation of the key findings, and systematic review registration number. This is very important to be written in your summary. Systematic review registration number. It is given by the journal in which you are going to publish your review article. So the summary is very conclusive part. It generally is like of 300 to 400 words, not more than that. And the next follows is introduction. Herein you are rationalizing and objecting both at the same time. You are explaining the rationale, the review of your context. You are reaching your source, right? You are generally implementing things here. You are just taking the context that is already known, the definitions, and what exactly are the implementations. That is exactly your rationalizing. How you are objecting things, how you are providing an explicit statement of the question, and how you are addressing them with the reference of the participants, interventions, comparisons, outcomes, and study designing. That is your PCOS. PCOS is basically a term, a short term to be used for the interventions, participants, comparisons, outcomes, and study design. The next come is your methodology. Here, methodology has likewise protocol, registration, eligibility criteria, sources of information, and your survey. Protocol and registration. Here, there are review protocols exist, right? So we use literature survey, right? We had used literature survey. So sorry for the internet connection. So let's continue. We're talking about Prisma. Prisma and afterwards its study characteristics. The 18th point says for each study, present characteristics, the plus size of because you need to follow up on each and everything. You need to provide a citation to make it legitimate. Kyuki, as if you hadn't done any of the research on by yourself. It's a previous work research, so you have to write who had from whom you had taken these kind of data, and what study type and what study size it had followed. So you have to explain all that in it. Risk of basis within the study. Herein, data of risk, data of biasness of each study is likewise the study they had done, it's of their vision, it's not of your vision, right? So the outcome is outcome cannot be of their level of assessment, it's your level of assessment. You have to implicate all these things and understand why uh, why how can you avoid these kind of biasness in your study by taking some kind of implementations of your own, taking risk of your own, and and concluding your data of your own. Results of individual is results of individual, it's exactly how much harm that study had meant and how much benefited you can gain from that study, how that intervention helps you grow, and what estimation affect your confidence of intervals, right? These kind of things to be explained very thoroughly. Explain about how use graphical data analysis for better success rates and treatment outcomes of multiple scientific studies. When you are synthesizing your result, so make sure you have proper meta analysis, including the confidence intervals, measures of consistency. It should have measure of consistency when in a flow you are talking about a result or a methodology. There needs to be a proper consistency, right? How much thick or how much loose, how much thin it can be, but it has a proper measure of consistency. When you are talking about literature survey, as we are talking thoroughly what exactly, or you can say a brief wording of review article is literature rich assessment. To be concluded by me itself, I generally specify it as a literature rich assessment. So the more rich is your literature, the more a measure of consistency of your result will implicate, will enhance your betterment or a successive review article. When you talk about risk of biasness across studies, yeah, it's basically your assessment. When you are talking about the more risk of assessment in cross studying, because you are not familiar with the study of like the researcher from whom you are taking that study analysis. Therefore, you are taking a high risk in implementing their research work as your vision. So, the for the better understanding, you should make sure you are going through all the assessment they had done, and concluding only that part or their success rate, so that you could have a success rate of your review article. So the additional analysis would give you the analysis of the sensitivity, subgroup analysis, and meta regression. So let's talk about discussion. Discussion have summary of evidence, limitations, conclusions. Summary is basically your main finding, what exactly your study strength shows, or what outcome you are considering, and what is exactly your main outcome, and your key group. You always express your key group. It can be your health providers, policy makers, users, or anybody can be, with your subject. What exactly is your subject, you have to explain about it. Your limitation for the study, discuss the limitation of the study and outcome, so that you would have a identified research, not like reporting. You are reporting somebody's biasness. You are just completing your study, not implementing, or their incomplete study or revival of their incompleteness. You're not explaining all these things here. You're just explaining about how and what exactly you learn from them. So, in proper manner, you would write about the interpretations of your results out of the evidence you got, and the implications of for future research. You are also applying. You are also building your research out of this proportion. So you need to have a proper implications of your future research out of these basic outcomes. So the next thing is funding. Funding is the most important thing. You are just mentioning those persons who had given you financial support throughout your work, and the persons who had all the persons who will be helping you as a funder, or what exactly are how are they helping by providing you tools, by providing university facilities, and by providing uh, if you are taking blood or using any bio safety product, so that will be written as well, the hospital name or the doctor acknowledgement, everything should be writing all these things here. So the next thing is what content and format. Content is basically very important point when we talk about review article. So the review article is the importance of systematic and non-systematic reviews have especially arises methodologies. So that describes literature sources, right? Systematic ones have a quantitative and qualitative analysis both at the same time, or can be like on different proportions. A non-systematic review is basically the data which was collected by your colleagues, the recommendation of your colleagues, and the struggle to research for and find possible researchers who have been responding and predetermined to start a review, who are exactly looking for to review your review their research, right? So the next thing would be the concepts. um, how you are reaching and revealing your study, and how you have written all these things, or systematic format of yours. Likewise, take an example. McAllister is had reviewed 6 medical journals, disclosing one-fourth of the review article, method of description, evaluation, or synopsis of evidence. One-third of them has focused on clinical topic, and one half of them had provided quantitative data about the extent of potential benefits. It's a very good example here. In he's saying he had done so much work. So think about how much potential his research work would be, so that he's getting this much beneficial or potential benefits out of his review articles only. So the next thing is use of proper methodologies. When we talk about methodologies, basically filtering out a tea or a coffee from a strainer. You are just figuring out, you are just purifying things by your knowledge, by your attitude, by your objectiveness. You are just confronting out those things what is exactly beneficial for you only, or for your research. You are writing about that thing only. You are filtering your point of view or perspective. So for that, we need first thing we need to perjure the selection of research articles that these articles might be biased. You can say, I like this article, I like the author, or you like the format or some article. So these kind of things is your perception. Nobody can change that. And whatever you like, you can use in your review article, but related to your topic. It has to be related to your topic. You can't make an irrelevant research, obviously. To minimize this risk, methodology used in reviews should allow us to define your research with minimum degree of biasness. Herein, when we are talking about the minimum degree of biasness, is basically you are uh, you are taking like an example. You are filtering up a coffee, and uh, there you get to they get to know that it has some impurities filtered out, as a um, strainer was like tinted or something. So you need to filter that again. You don't have to think, I will do that, I will use a spoon or something. You can't do that. You have to filter it again. You have to be minimum biased, you, so that you can have a purified or um, filter tea or coffee. The second problem is that the researcher has been performed with small size samples. When we talk about sampling preference, sometimes sampling can be a lot more difficult to handle. A large data, uh, a large data can be implemented, but it's really hard to handle all that data. Plus, sample sizing smalls is one of the reason is financial support. The more financial support for the sampling or for the traveling for the expenses of the researcher, the more good research or good result can be analyzed. But as per the funding kind of a thing, researchers don't really go for that. The most problematic aspect is the tendency to give biasness responses to the questions. Herein, we need to select the study with known or favorite results rather than the best quality investigations among them. Like I said earlier, this is your review article. You are the only one who is selecting or opting up uh, your uh, your best interest, right? So sometimes we left out the best quality content because sometimes we like to see more pictures of in review articles, and some of them don't have any photographs, just the content. So we usually skip those part or those articles which have no photographs or something. So this is one way of filtering out things. So I usually don't go for that. I like to read the whole paper one by one, and making some points is very good scenario. So try using that. Let's talk about the structure of systematic review. There are four sections: introduction, methods, results, and discussion. Content: for the introduction, you use the problem and what exactly are you dealing in your review article. Methodology: it methodology here, it doesn't mean you are not performing any experiment here. Just get to know, you are just evaluating those methodology which will describe your research and give potential to it, so that it will be evaluated in a proper specific manner. The result: you are describing the quality and your outcome out of the study. So discussion would be your summarization of the result, limitation, and the outcome, which would be concluding part as in the for the research. The next part would be preparation of the review article. The steps of a systematic review. First step would be formulation of research question. The process is select answerable questions, right? Disclosure of the study, databases and keywords, evaluation of its quality. It's basically quality during selection of the study. Likewise, we said this is your point, your perception. So try to use quality of your research articles, so that you could have a proper or a fundamental research. Otherwise, sometimes a review article we are looking for can only be result in like a rubbish kind of a thing. So be very specific for the quality. Don't go for like photographs or something. Don't go for biasness. So try to have quality product or quality review for your research writing, review writing. The next thing is synthesis, method interpretation, and your synthesis of the outcomes is your resulting. How you are interpreting that data for your methodology, of your methodology, right? So these things need to be kept in mind before you are preparing for your review article. The next step would be the research question. Research question is basically the main component, and it can be divided into two. PICO. PICO is the problem, I for intervention, C for appropriate or comparison, O for outcome measure. Herein, take an example. A female patient with stress, urinary incompetence, comparisons between transburator and retropubic mid-urethral tension-free band surgery as the patient's satisfaction. Here, the problem or the patient is female. The comparison we are talking about is stress, urinary incompetence, and between mid-urethral tension-free band surgery is your intervention, what you are exactly going to do in it, and your satisfaction is the basic outcome which you are looking for. So this example states very clear about how you are going to find your research question, right? So how to find, how to write, or what exactly are you are going to say in your finding of the study. In a systematic review, on a focus question, methods of investigation should be very clear and specific. Don't go for like a rush push. It will only result in like no thing, dead end or kind of a thing. Ideally, research methods, investigative data, keywords should be described in the final report. Different database can be dependent on the topic, or sometimes it not when you are talking about the quantitative result. So in clinical, the next thing you need to kept in mind is the appropriate term of surviving, it's not surveying, survey. Pico elements should be the main guide of the process. Just kept in mind what exactly is your intervention and your problem. Don't forget that. And for the general, when you combine these words, is your basic element, and is the basic conjunction between that. You're describing a problem with the result, with the intervention is your method. Which exactly method are you using or element you are using to overcome or finding your outcome. Finding results or your methodological filter is basically investigation best investigation method for your research question. The clinical tool we use to offer is basically 5 inquiries: etiology, diagnosis, treatment, prognosis, clinical prediction. Let's understand what is exactly the evaluation of the study or quality of your study. as you are talking about a review process, right? So review process is not to be discriminate between bad or good quality research. It has to be both, but you should be finding a better kind of a qualified research as far as possible. So sometimes you need to filter out, like read about 15 to 20 to 25 to 30 kind of papers, so that you could be achieving to one or two papers in whole. That would be a quality product or a quality review for your review article, right? You need to plan those things. The general planning or the cohort or a case study or a series, you need to have a proper variations. The hierarchy of evidence for research question is presented in the table. However, the hierarchy is the only first step. The first good quality research articles won't be read rest of the other articles, which saves tons of the time. Sometimes when we are reading a good quality research work, doesn't mean it is having whole lot of a good whole lot of the implemented work which you are looking for. You are looking for a ton of uh, a good work which is having implications of for your work, right? You're not looking for a good work of that researcher. You're looking for the good work for you. So you need to have a proper guidance or a proper assemblance of your project or your research. So this is the table. How you are determining your level of evidence. So first thing is random systematic level 2 study, randomized control study, and non-randomized study case series. How you are going to diagnose? Systematic study, level 2 study, cross-sectional study is randomized one, and for non-randomized is cross-sectional but consecutive. Diagnostic case control study. Case series is the case study kind of a study. How you are formulating your synthesis or your result. How you are pursuing to a conclusion where you are finding a solution for the research problem which you are looking for. And this is the risky part of the decision that votes the absolute majority. When you are answering something, you need to be very precise and very sure you that you had find this result, so that um, you could be helping, or you could be uh, assembling the other researchers work, right? There is well performed large scale study which you had done. Approximately you had gone through like 100 papers, and you are weighing up so much on your shoulders. Likewise, you had only reached to 5 papers on which had a very good uh, resemblance to your review article, and now you had to design a weighing up, design a same scale level so that you could achieve this much betterment for your review article. So for that you need to have a very good hold to your problem. For ideally, you can say you have solve an apparent differences. When you are talking about similarities, so you need to look about the whole issue. Likewise, the problem, the intervention, the comparison, the outcome. This is basically your ideology. Pico is the most important element which will help you formulate your synthesis, right? Ideally, one should focus on higher and larger study for your comparison of the basic study. How to write a conclusion, or how to proceed with the conclusion. Get rid of fixed ideas and obsessions off from your heads. When you talk about a large perspective, right, you need to get rid of the fixed ideas. You need to have flexible as possible, because you are analyzing the different study which is not yours. You hadn't done that, right? So get it out from your head and have a bigger picture. Don't think small, ki that person had did something wrong, and I don't know what exactly he had done, or what exactly is their achievements. So don't think about all these failures of his. Think about the positiveness or his success rates, and the bigger picture, how much effort he has put so that he could achieve this much result. So think about the bigger picture. Research articles is the result literature should be approached with a methodological and critical attitude. Likewise, when we talk about research articles and methodological, with methodological is like uh, a cherry on the top of the cake, right? When we talk about methodology, methodology is the main point where which will enhance your literature, plus the absurdness of your research when we are improving ourselves, right? So you need to have a logical and explaining things of your own. You don't need somebody's support to hold your back. You need to have a front up front, so that you can have a proper explanation of your research by your own. You know, don't need to have a proper somebody's research and a comparison, so that you could say my result is better than his study. You can't say that, because you are making a because every study is different. Everyone is doing their research on their own, so everybody has a different story behind every research. So you can't say this is my research or his research is bad, because you'd had never run in his shoes, right? So try to think about a bigger picture. Final data, when you're collecting the data from uh, mm, fin- from somebody's research, you need to make sure you are implementing your effort into it, because you need to make it like it's your own. Don't copy paste. Just just make sure you are representing the whole data into a different kind of infographic or a graphological or a diagrammatic way of, so that it would look an impressive and successive rate. You are understanding, you had understand this much point of this research. So what is references? References is basically you are just knowledging, or you are just crediting those persons who had given so much efforts to your review articles. Types of references is there, mainly we use five types of referencing: MLA, APA, Chicago, Vancouver, and Harvard. MLA is your Modern Language Association. APA is APA and AMA is both kind of a same. American Psychological Association, and that one is American. Uh, I don't know exactly what exact. Association, and Chicago, Vancouver, and Harvard. You know about that. We will discussing here. APA is your style of documentation of sources. American Psychological Association is basically your social sciences, psychological, anthropology, sociology, education, and many other fields. Herein, you use surname, then the initial of the letters, then the brackets, then the year, then full stop, then the topic name, the title of the research, your journal name, your volume, brackets, that is your volume number, in which volume it has been written, and the volume page numbers. This is your APA. The MLA is basically your referencing method of modern language association. It's a work cited, or in say brief in text citation. Herein, you write the one author name with the et al, the commas, the title in between, the journal name, volume, number, brackets. You use the year, the page numbers. Chicago is a two-part referencing. It's author date style. Here, the author name in whole, then the bracket, then the commas, double commas, then the journal name, then volume, then number, then year, then page number. The Harvard styling is most preferably or used these days. Author date method. Herein, the author name with the initial of the first names, surname, the year, the title of the research, the journal name, volume, brackets, then your volume number, page number, then comes Vancouver. Is basically using in scripts or the text within the brackets. Herein, the surname, initials, then the title, then the journal name, then the page number, then the date, the volume number, then the page number. Herein, see for example, you are referencing the publication single author reference. You are using surname and the year. This is the wrong way. Sometimes you used to have this kind of referencing styling. The next one is the double author side author referencing. You can use this number, the name of the authors, then the year, or you can write as if this et al and the surname of the publication, year of the publication. You can use, there are many tools for like referencing. Bibliotex is basically a typical LaTeX document you can use, and it's very easy to use a LaTeX document and a bibliotex together. They are very helpful in both ways. If you only want to use bibliotex, you can use that as well. With the Google Scholar, it's a supporting system. It's also supporting Google Scholar. Google Docs. Then the Endnote. Endnote is MS Word software, or you can have in Mac as well, or with the sheets. Endnote is a commercial standard practical software. It helps in writing essays and articles. The next is Refman. Refman is reference manager. It's a commercial as well, and I have used it once. It's a quite useful tool for if you want to use it. Like it's a free tool kind of. Endnote is like 30 days trial. So if you want to use, you can use both. RefWorks is a web-based commercial reference. You don't need to download a software for the RefWorks. You have to just go through online web page of them and just provide what exactly are you looking for referencing. The next thing comes is abstract writing. In in the current scenario, pandemic or COVID cases has been increased, so the level of the review articles has been risen. So you need to have proper knowledge to generate guidelines about the topic. They frequently use reviews as a starting point. So the next thing is, before asking how, ask question of the why is very important to in the review. So try to answer why first before how. So the next thing is, the major fundamental purpose of the writing is to make a readable synthesis, so that your literature is important to answer what exactly research question you are answering or your current area of the research. Although review writing is very attractive, but it's important to identify the important questions there. Good review method are critical and unbiased. Reader regarding literature of the current literature. Reader had not written any of the previous works which you have been citing. He or she is only reading your work. So try to give them a proper guidance, so that they would understand what exactly the previous researcher was saying and what exactly you are saying in the form of your literatureness. What is When you are writing a consents of review, you should be writing in a systematic fashion, so that the notion should be usually following what exactly is happening with your research and how exactly are you pursuing with the answer. In a systematic review, a focus question must be clearly described. You should describe about what exactly are you going to answer in it. A methodological filter, best method you had used to find out your research answer. Essential process in differentiating good research from bad, and leaning on the results for the better studies. So the next thing is meta-analysis of the conclusion and keyword findings. Here the keyword for the abstract writing is how to write review writing. So the main or the most striking points are your keywords. Try to use that. Order of the writing, how to write, in which fashion. First come your introduction. Introduce your topic clearly and defining what exactly your article is about to discuss and what exactly the background of the topic is. Your body is your review, or is your literature of the review, is basically having methodology as well. How different methodologies give you a per usual, and there is generally divided into three sections: main body, um, finding body, find out body. So evaluate the methodology section, study analysis, designing, compare study, and discuss their implications. Conclusion. In conclusion, you have to briefly rationalize the things and conclude what exactly you had drawn. Don't try to copy paste others' findings. Think about your own which you had understood through this research only. Cite your literature very well. Use a standardized referencing style. AMP and APA is the one most important reference styling. An abstract should be approximately of like 200 to 300 words. Don't cite references in the abstract. Last page is the first page is your title page, title of the topic, and your name, date. So, some of the questions: how to evaluate someone's research and identify the potential gaps. Yeah, by how to evaluate when you are finding you are reading the review article. Try to read the abstract first, because the abstract will give you the exact idea about what exactly you are going to find in your paper. So this is your first point of evaluating, or how to evaluate someone's potential gaps. How to explain the current state of knowledge. When you are explaining your when you are talking about someone methodology, you can explain things by by uh, by looking or by seeing what exactly is their findings or what exactly method had they used, so that it would be helpful for your current state of knowledge. How to identify gaps in an existing study. Gaps are generally found in discussion and conclusion part. Try to read that second as well after reading abstract. So that would be very helpful for finding out your gaps. The next thing is how to highlight the main methodology and research techniques. So when you are highlighting your main methodology, try to focus on the main or your success story or your success methodology, which will get and you which will give you the outcome of the research, right? How to sum up is your conclusion. When you are summarizing your result and discussion, try to cop up with the whole scenario. Don't look for like a smaller picture. Try to have a look on the whole larger picture, so that you would have a proper and implicated conclusion. What or who is your critical friend? I Who is your critical friend? The critical friend is you, and how is exactly you are implementing yourself into helping yourself is the main question here. Just try to help or try not to bother yourself too much, so that you would not have a proper findings of your research. How much plagiarism is allowed? um, it's 5% only. Try to have less. Some of the journals have 7. Some of the journals have, but not all. So try to have minimum plagiarism, like around 1 to 2%. Try not to copy. How to reduce plagiarism? Plagiarism can be reduced by writing somebody's research in your own language. Don't copy paste. What is the tool for plagiarism? Turnitin. How to publish your review article. Different scenarios have different journals have their own guidelines. Try to look what is your target journal, and after that try to have try to write an abstract and submit that, and let's see what exactly is the publishing part. For review papers, it's a high scholar contribution. You are just contributing to the study. It's because you are just an updation. You are making an updation with the previous research, right? So it's a very critical examine state. You are providing guidance, your idea, and your future development. So it's a nice and a huge contribution. I am talking about elsewhere here. I'm not talking about any other guidelines. So please be focused. If you are considering to writing a review, so these things to be kept in mind, and the the journal will be the the review paper, and before submission, potential authors should contact the editor in chief to ensure the proposed review article is uh, within the current aim and scope of the. Try to find what exactly your targeting journal aim and scope, so that you are not submitting it and it would be rejected afterwards because it's not publishing these kind of review papers. So try to have a current aim or focus journal for your review article. Contact and provide them your title page, your title, a detailed reason why you are writing about it, a brief description of your content, that is your abstract, and your content page. Uh, Editor in chief will evaluate the proposal and contact the authors with a decision on the matter. If the authors are invited to submit a full review paper, some preliminary feedback will be provided. The following guidelines for review paper. Research area of the scholarly article, it based on author's knowledge, learning, not necessarily on the author's research. It demonstrates that great depth of knowledge and understanding of the author in particular area of the subject. The subject you are dealing should be one which, though research has reached and identified Weber's state of maturity, these things to be kept in mind. A significant body of knowledge through you are providing through your subjects, or your subject is too should not be too broad. You have to be very specific. Systematic. So here we are talking about systematic review, and paper should not include references of all relevant published work worldwide. It has to be a filtered out uh, kind of thing, 50 to 70 references depending on the subject area, and figures and tables taken from past papers, so suitably acknowledged. You're citing those if you are taking any pictures or tables from uh, somebody's uh, somebody's research. The paper should not contain detailed standard book work. You have to be very advanced and explaining things very thoroughly. An introduction should be including the background, subject area, history or historical, and modern industrial world, if that's important in it, and explaining why the author have written the paper and how they have dealt with the subject area. Do not deal with the whole subject chronologically. Don't do that. Don't go broad, or have a specific requirement at every accuracy, and subcategory should be having references and significant bearing on the subject. Content of the paper should be academic should not be irrelevant. The paper of the section is summarized and future trends should be written and highlighted as well. So thank you guys for listening. If there's any question, please let me know, and we will be I will be handling the question in from the control panel. Thank you.